Revenge films.
My name is Sally. I'm an office worker who works at a local company. I married a very nice husband, and although we have no kids yet, we're living a happy life. The administrative job I do allows me to leave work early, and I still work full-time even after my marriage. One day in my happy life, the rumor that the young administrative employee Luna was going to quit her job after her marriage. She followed me to the office kitchen and she said to me, "I would love it if you could come to my wedding too, Sally." Huh? Are you sure? I was surprised. To be honest, Luna was way younger than me, and the only thing we had in common was that we both worked in administration. Of course we talked during work, but we never met up privately. Is she just inviting me as her senior at work? Then she told me that she was planning to invite many of her seniors and colleagues at work to her wedding. Oh, so I guess I'm just one of them. It made sense, but I could vividly remember her sick smile when she invited me to her wedding. I was having a bad feeling for some reason. On the day of the wedding, I was honestly worried, so I wanted to go with my husband, but I was the only one who received the invitation. Before I left, my husband said, "Be careful." I bet he could sense that I was worried. Once I arrived at the venue, I was aghast. My name wasn't included in the list of guests. I showed the reception the invitation I brought with me. The date and time were correct. But mine had a different design compared to the invitation everyone else got. Everyone else had an expensive-looking invitation, while mine looked very cheap. My colleagues started to whisper to each other. I was attracting everyone's attention, and it made me want to disappear. "Could you please check? The bride directly told me that she wanted me to come. Although the design's a bit different, I do have the invitation, too." But no matter how many times they checked the list, my name wasn't there. As expected, they haven't prepared a seat for me as well. While I was panicking out of embarrassment and worry, Luna, the bride, slowly approached me. "Oh, I was wondering who was causing a scene, but turns out it's you, Sally. What's wrong? You're dressed up today. That's rare. Is your friend or relative getting married at the same venue today? Wait, but I heard that we were the only ones having a wedding here." "Don't be ridiculous. You're the one who invited me. That's why I bought new clothes, went to the hair salon." No, Sally, what are you saying? We're not that close. Definitely not close enough to invite you to my wedding." Luna laughed at me. Then I finally realized that Luna had deceived me. But I really had no idea why. Even at work, we barely interact. See, I received a wedding invitation. Huh? I don't know what that is. Look at that cheap-looking wedding invitation. I have no idea. I felt humiliated, ashamed of myself, and when tears fell across my cheeks, the groom approached us.
"What's wrong?"
"This middle-aged lady from my workplace tried to come into our wedding, and she's trying to barge in, so I'm just making her leave." She one-sidedly said that, but fortunately the groom, his parents, and my colleagues were calm. "All your colleagues, especially those who work in administration, are all invited, but why is Sally the only one who wasn't invited?" They listed all the suspicious points. She was starting to look bad in the eyes of others and yelled, "Today is my wedding! Why do you all care about this middle-aged lady so much?" She pointed at me. "Why did you invite me to your wedding at work then? Is it fun trying to prank me? Your wedding plan is ruined because of this." When I calmly pointed out, her face distorted into an expression of hatred. "It's all your fault! You embarrassed yourself in front of everyone like I wanted you to, so just leave!" "You wanted me to? What is that supposed to mean?" I guess Luna realized what she accidentally said in front of everyone. "I just said the wrong word!" She still tried to lie, but when I questioned her about what she just said, she finally had to give in. "Gosh, it's a small prank. I just wanted to embarrass you in front of your colleagues." "Just?" I was at a loss for words. Then the groom got really mad at her.
"You're awful, Luna. I didn't know you were this kind of person. I'll never marry someone like you. I'm going home."
He got so mad and actually left his own wedding. Seeing how the groom reacted, Luna's parents yelled as if to protect their daughter. It was basically chaos. Obviously, her wedding ended in a mess. Her marriage was also canceled. That day, I didn't get to find out the reason why she did this to me, but I easily found out about it soon. Luna gave me a call. "My wedding was ruined because of you. How are you going to take responsibility?" I was surprised with her sudden insult. If there was anyone who wanted to complain, that would be me. I've got a deep scar in my heart. You better take responsibility by compensating with money. You can just pay me $10K for compensation, so you better pay $35K in addition for the wedding venue as well. Huh? Are you stupid? What? She was at a loss for words. I'm the one who should be asking for compensation money. It's your fault your wedding was ruined. First of all, why did you do that to me? I just can't accept how a middle-aged lady like you gets to work and have a happy marriage life at the same time. They're making me quit my job. First of all, it's crazy how a high school graduate like you gets to work at the same place as me. She was right. I was a high school graduate while she had a bachelor's degree. But Luna has barely taken any certification exams. On the other hand, I had some qualifications in the field of administration. I bet you used connections and cheated by taking advantage of your femininity. That's why I wanted to punish you. To sum it up, she was jealous of my understanding husband and hated me just because I was more talented than her despite being a high school graduate. You hated me just because of that? If you aren't happy with what you have now, you have to work hard yourself, such as by taking certification exams. Goodbye, my ex-junior. I didn't feel any sympathy for her, and I felt refreshed telling her what I wanted to say. But Luna continued to insult me every day. She would send me disgusting messages to my phone, and even to my computer I used at work, and I received missed calls with insulting voicemails. I was gradually getting mad, so I asked for help from my husband, my colleagues at work, and even the groom. Some weren't too motivated to help me at first, but once I showed them proof of her insults and disgusting messages, they got all serious and agreed to help me out. I was receiving more and more help from my surroundings, and Luna had no idea that I was even asking a lawyer for help. To her address, I sent her an invoice of $45K that she tried to make me pay, and I felt very refreshed. That included the cost of the wedding and compensation money. I asked for the groom to work together, and it ended in our big victory. A few days later, Luna visited me and got on her knees. Please, Senior Sally, please help me. I was planning to stop working after marriage, so I quit my job and I have no income. I bought many new things and visited the many salons for my wedding, so I don't have any savings left as well. It's impossible to pay $45K at once. Huh? You're the one who asked for it first. You deserve it. Oh no, my engagement was broken off, I lost my job, I'm in debt, and everyone distances me from them. You're the only one I can rely on. Hey. When I opened my mouth, she happily looked at me. I bet she thought that I would offer my help. Can you stop calling me senior? You're no longer working for our company. I'm not your senior at work anymore, and you're not my junior at work as well. If you understand that, please leave. You're causing trouble. Oh, and you could relax. Even if you send me an invitation next time, I'll never go to your wedding again. We're strangers to each other now anyways. Luna failed to find a new job even back in her hometown, and I heard she had no luck in marriage as well.
My name is Michael. This is a story from a few years ago. One day I was having a meal at a diner while I was on a business trip when I happened to see my mom, who was near the age of 60, come into the diner. She was with a man I'd never seen before and flirting with him. I was in a place where she wouldn't be able to see me, and I was sitting pretty far away, but I could overhear their conversation. And I overheard words like, "once I retire," and "divorce," among other words that I didn't feel I should hear coming out of my mother's mouth. That's why, even though it was a little bit dangerous, I decided to move to a seat closer to my mother's back. And then, as I continued to listen to their conversation, I heard her say, "When my husband retires, then I'm going to get a divorce. And once his retirement money is deposited into the account, then I'm going to withdraw the full amount into cash in my own hands. And also I'm going to sell the house. And then I'm going to get married to you, darling. I do feel bad for my husband, who I've been fooling for over 20 years now, but I've woken up and I realized my one true love." That's what she was saying. I thought I was gonna throw up from what I heard, and in order to calm myself down, I decided to call my wife. As soon as she picked up the phone, she must have realized that something happened, and she strongly told me to tell her everything. When I told her what happened when I was at the diner, she told me to wait a little bit and hung up the phone on me. I was confused, but 30 minutes later, my wife called me back. She told me that she was on the phone with my brother's wife, who was living at home with my parents. According to my brother's wife, my mom had told them that she was going on a vacation with a friend from one of her hobby lessons. She said that she wouldn't be home for 3 days, and my brother's wife said that she had been attending these lessons for over 20 years now. Because it perfectly aligned with what I had told my wife, she said that the family wanted to talk about my mother's affair and the divorce. And my wife said that she's always liked my father more than she liked my mother, and that she would be happy to take my dad's side and support him in any way. I decided to go home as soon as possible and go to my parents' house with my family. My wife and my son agreed to come with me, and the next day at night I went over to my family's house. Just as I expected, my mom wasn't home. Before we went into the house, my wife stopped me and said,
We can't start talking about this immediately in front of the kids. First, I think it's best if we speak to your brother and his wife before we talk to your dad about it.
That was the advice that she had given me, so when we got into the house, we decided to ask my dad to look after my son, especially since he loved his grandson, and the 4 of us spoke in another room. I was so amazed by how reliable my wife was in this moment, more than ever before. Because this was about my own birth parents, at the time I may have looked like I was maintaining my composure, but inside my heart I was honestly panicking a lot. The only reason I was able to stay calm was thanks to my wife, and to this day I am so grateful to her. When my wife and I reported what we discovered to my brother Stephen, his response was, "To be honest with you, I actually suspected her of having an affair for a while now. I felt bad for our dad, but I didn't want to destroy our family, and that's why I wasn't able to confront Mom about it all these years." That's what he said. Apparently his wife was the first to notice and raise suspicions, but she was so afraid of our mom that she had only spoken to my brother about it, and they didn't say anything to our dad. First, we knew that we needed to gather definitive evidence, so my brother put out the money and we hired a detective agency. We found out that her partner was a man who used to work at the city ward office. He had already resigned, was single, but once divorced. He was living alone in an apartment building nearby, and my mother was practically like a visiting housewife. Everybody around them assumed that he had gotten remarried. They met because he was attending the same lessons as my mother. The detective agency even succeeded in getting disgusting photos and videos of the 2 of them going at it in the apartment. Evidence that we never wanted to see as her sons continued to come out. At this point, we couldn't keep this from our father any longer, and we decided to sit him down and show him all of the evidence without sugarcoating anything. He was furious. We thought that he would want to speak to his wife about it immediately, but then he stopped us and told us not to say anything to her until he retired. To be honest, neither my brother nor I thought of my mother as our mom anymore, and if we had our way, we wanted our dad to get a divorce immediately. However, my dad was her husband after all, and even though my brother and I had our own thoughts about it, after we thought hard about it, we decided to calm down and follow his wishes. And then, a few months later, the day of his retirement, my dad had told us to come to his house early in the morning, so my wife and my son and I gathered at the family house with my brother and his wife. To our surprise, my mom wasn't home, but I knew that today was finally the day. As we were explaining the flow of events today to my brother and sister, That was when my mom came storming home. As it turns out, she had already tried to withdraw the retirement money and wasn't able to withdraw anything from the account. When she barged into the house, my mom was furious, but she must not have been told that we were going to be home. So when she saw the whole family lined up, she froze. However, my mom's first words were,
"I can't live with you anymore. We're getting a divorce. And along with that, you're going to give me a settlement fee. You're going to sell this house, and you're going to give me half of the money from it, too."
That's what she started saying. I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth, but we all stayed silent. That is, until my dad opened his mouth. "When we built this house, based on the contract on the loan and what was going to be best for the family, our eldest son's name is on the contract. When it came to paying off the loan, I had been paying my son a portion of the loan every month from my bank account, and our son has been paying the loan directly from his account. That's why this house belongs to Stephen, so even if we get a divorce, we don't have any right to sell this house.
Huh? What are you saying?
And also, because I found another job for after I retire from my current job, I used all of my retirement money in order to purchase an apartment to live over there for the new job."
Hey, but I haven't heard about any of this. You didn't tell me anything.
My mother was fuming with anger, and she was bright red. But then, the next time my father opened his mouth, her face turned blue at his words. "Today, the man that you've been having an affair with should be receiving an invoice for a settlement fee from my lawyer. Right when you came back home here, I contacted my lawyer, so he should be arriving there shortly. By the way, we had hired a detective agency, so I've already confirmed that your boyfriend is home at this very moment. And here you go. Here's all of the evidence of the affair that we collected." And he handed a sealed envelope to my mom. And at the very end, he said, "I'll happily get a divorce from you, but I'm not going to be signing the divorce papers until I receive the full settlement fee from your boyfriend. I've already spoken to my lawyer, but we may have a divorce mediation with the lawyer. By the way, I've already changed the locks to this house as well as your room, so you're not gonna be able to get in. So get out of this house. You can go straight back to your boyfriend's apartment." My mom couldn't say anything back. She was kicked out of the house. Everybody in the family, except for my brother and sister who weren't present, had changed their phone numbers, but immediately after my mom was kicked out of the house, we called the rest of the family and told them to cut off their phones and ask them to get new phone numbers as well so that my mom couldn't contact them. When we found out that my dad's wife was cheating on him, we all wanted him to get a divorce from her immediately. But when I saw him giving her the full punishment for her affair after all of this preparation, I felt like I understood why he wanted to wait. And then, a few days later, my dad left the family home and moved into his new apartment that he bought. My brother and his wife moved in with our dad for the time being to help him settle into the new apartment. And as for my mom's boyfriend, before the divorce mediation could even begin, he gave in. My dad had kept this a secret from us, but it turns out that he actually knew the ex-wife of this man. He had actually met her, and upon discussing it with her, he found out that they got a divorce because he practically forced her into it and kicked her out of the house. And even though she couldn't gather definitive evidence for it, she knew that he was cheating on her before they got the divorce. And according to her, apparently, the advisor at his job was a pretty tough man. And if they were to find out that he was under a divorce mediation, he would get fired immediately. So he ended up resigning from his job. But after he paid the full settlement fee to his ex-wife and to my dad, he was able to keep his job. As for the money that my brother spent in order to hire the detective agency and gather evidence, he handed it all over as long as it would be helpful to my dad in this case. Because to us, she wasn't our mom anymore. She was less than garbage. After that, my parents got a divorce, and apparently my former mom started her new life with her boyfriend. But in the end, the man's workplace found out about his affair, and he was fired from his job. And so the comfortable life that my mom had always dreamed of wasn't going to come true after all. 1 year later, we heard from our relatives that my mom was going around asking anybody if they knew our phone number or how to get in touch with us. From what she told them, she wasn't able to make ends meet anymore, and she was trying to come and beg us to help her out financially. And even though she was out of her mind, she wanted to ask my dad if they could get back together and start over, and she wanted us to help her convince our dad. But of course, all of the relatives knew the reason behind the divorce, and none of them wanted to help her, and everybody told her that they weren't going to give her our contact information. So we were relieved. Even if I were to run into my mother somewhere, I don't think any of us would lend a helping hand. If my ex-mom falls even deeper in the future and doesn't have any money left and becomes homeless, that was none of my business anymore. She was the idiot that fooled our honest father for over 20 years and then tried to throw him away like it was nothing. And I didn't think of her as family anymore. After that, as for my father, he's working really hard at his new job. Luckily, it was a place where he could apply the skills from his previous workplace, and because my dad had a great personality, even though he joined at such an old age, I heard that even the younger generation at work are all relying on him in the office. And my brother and our other siblings go to visit him from time to time, and they even go on vacations together with his grandchildren on the weekends, and he seems to be enjoying his life. It truly is a relief. When I think about the fact that my mom was the type of evil witch that would try to steal the money that my father had worked tirelessly for years for to support our family, to this day it makes me want to throw up. But those two who betrayed my father like that have already fallen to the depths of hell, so I'm just gonna forget about them and move on with my life, with my happy family. My name is Michael. Around the time that I first got married to my wife Kelly, we were living in a municipal housing complex. But when I got home one day, I saw a side of my wife I had never seen before, and she was wrestling with a man that I had never seen before. On that day, my work took a lot longer than usual, and I was working overtime. I didn't get home until just past 9 in the evening. When I climbed the stairs to the city housing complex and arrived at the hallway on the 3rd floor where we were living, I suddenly heard a "Ugh!" The sound of a man crying out echoed through the hallway, followed by which was definitely the scream of my wife's voice that came through the hallway from my apartment. I had originally told my wife that I was going to be home around 10 at night, and the first thought that I had was, wait a minute, no way, is she cheating on me? Am I about to walk in on that? That thought crossed my mind and pierced my heart. My wife didn't seem like the type that would ever cheat on me, but my heart was pounding as I approached my apartment door. I slowly inserted the key and quietly opened the door, but to my shock, right in front of me was my wife completely naked, straddling a man and putting him in a wrestling move called the reverse shrimp hold as he was struggling. I couldn't understand what was going on in front of me at all. I stood at the front doorway in complete shock, and all I could do was stand there and stare at my wife and this man. But then my wife noticed me, and she yelled out to me,
Michael, hurry up! Hurry up and call the police! The police! This man is a criminal!
Without breaking her hold on this mysterious man, she started demanding that I call the police. What? Criminal? Call the police? What is going on here? Inside of my mind, I was going into a mini panic attack, but then the man that was underneath my naked wife started crying out to me. Hurry, please! Please help me! It hurts! Ow! And this time, the mystery man started begging me for help. I was looking back and forth at the two of them, and my wife's eyes were dead serious, but so were the guy's eyes. For the time being, I felt like I was able to understand that my wife wasn't cheating on me. So I decided to obey my wife's orders and call the police. I asked them to come as soon as possible, and immediately after calling 911, they first asked, 911, what's your emergency? When they asked me that, I truly didn't know how to explain the situation. The only thing I could do was to tell them exactly what was in front of me, which was my naked wife and an unknown man in a wrestling position. So of course the police were just as confused as I was. At this rate, it wasn't gonna solve anything at all, so I just gave the police my address, and I said, anyway, please just get here as soon as possible. And in response, reluctantly, the police said, okay, we'll be there shortly. Their response wasn't exactly the most settling, but they agreed to come to my house, so that was a relief. Before the police arrived, I wanted to make sure my wife could put some clothes on, so I took my wife's place and held the mystery man down. Even though the man was fairly skinny, he was about the same height as me, and I was close to 6 feet tall. My wife was 5 feet tall, and I was amazed that my wife was able to get him into a reversed shrimp hold and have him in so much pain. Normally, I think I would be feeling an intense anger at this mystery man who saw my wife's naked figure. But it was such a strange and unbelievable situation that I had even forgotten to get angry, and I was simply at a loss for words. Once my wife put on some clothes, she came back into the living room, but I said, Kelly, you stay over there and go in the room, don't come near here. And I made sure the mystery man couldn't go anywhere near her. When the police arrived, the man was arrested and taken away. And my wife finally spoke.
That was so scary. This man just came out of nowhere
And with tears streaming down her face, she was explaining the situation to the police. After I heard my wife's animalistic screaming voice and the sight of her wrestling this man like a monster while naked, I can only imagine I was watching her with a complicated look on my face. But luckily, the man had been caught. And as for who this mystery intruder was, we found out that he was actually a resident in the same housing complex, and that he was the husband of an acquaintance of my wife. When he was questioned by the police, he said that his motive for this was because he heard from somewhere that my wife and I were going to be going to Hawaii for our honeymoon. When he heard that, he thought that we shouldn't be going to Hawaii when he didn't have any money and wasn't able to go anywhere for his honeymoon, and that's why he tried to sneak in to rob our apartment. I then heard the chain of events that led to the situation. What happened was that my wife had come home while this man was robbing our empty apartment. But at the time, my wife didn't notice that he was there, and she went straight inside to take a bath. But that meant that the apartment was empty with just one naked woman in the house, and apparently the man started to get carried away by the situation instantly, and he thought about sexually assaulting my wife. He then slowly opened up the door to the bathroom, and he quietly approached my wife in the bath. And from behind, he reached out his arm to try to grab her. My wife sensed that something was wrong, and when she turned around, there was an unknown man standing right behind her, so she screamed. Ah! And while she was screaming, she instantly grabbed the man's arm and she put him into the wrestling move called a cobra twist. Actually, my wife was an extremely passionate professional wrestling fan, and she studied martial arts up until college. Even after she graduated from college, she kept in shape by working out almost every day at home. That's why the mystery man didn't stand a chance. My wife was so strong that the criminal realized he wasn't going to be able to fight her, and so he tried to get my wife off of him and ran out of the bathroom. But my wife wasn't gonna let him get away, so even though she was still naked, she chased after him and was able to grab him just before the front door. And then she held him down, and just as she had put him in a reverse shrimp hold and pinned him, that was when I came home. And that was the chain of events. In the end, when the police inspected the man's belongings, not only had he taken our passports and our travel tickets, but also money, cash, our bank card, credit cards, and our seal. He had taken almost all of our assets that we had at home, and it was a disaster. I heard that normally it's difficult for an amateur to find bank books and other valuable items in such a short amount of time from somebody's house, but the guy had somehow found all of our assets in our apartment within 20 minutes of breaking into it. And that's why the police started to suspect that perhaps this wasn't his first crime. And because there had been a number of reports about robberies at home in the area, the police launched an investigation thinking that there could be a connection between them. Even if our apartment was his first crime, it was going to leave more than enough of a criminal record, and the police said that he would easily be placed behind bars. And, well, everything we heard after that were all rumors, but there were also talks that his wife was actually an accomplice. 2 days after all of the investigations were started at our apartment, the mystery man's wife had already moved out of their apartment. However, judging by how quickly they were moved out of the apartment, the rumor was that maybe the wife was also arrested by the police. Also, the day that this incident occurred with my wife, we heard that a neighbor found her crying and screaming in the area, saying that she broke her leg and that she was carried away in an ambulance. My wife and I lived on the 4th floor of the building, so when we heard that, we thought that maybe she jumped off of the balcony on our 4th floor, and it all came together, because the front door was already blocked by my naked wife and the man wrestling in the doorway. But never in a million years did I think that my wife's obsession with professional wrestling was gonna come to use in a way like this. To be honest, I never really understood the appeal of professional wrestling, and after we got married, I didn't think that she needed to train so hard in order to stay fit when I already thought she was beautiful. But in a huge turn of events this time, my wife saved us. If my wife was a normal housewife who didn't train that hard or know those moves, even if she was shocked by the man who broke into our apartment, she probably wouldn't have been able to fight back like that. And not only that, but on that day I was stuck working overtime and was in the office until late. It just so happened that I was able to go home right at that time. But if I had taken any longer that day and my wife wasn't able to defend herself, she definitely would have been assaulted by that man. When I think about it like that, it still sends chills down my spine to this day. I'm just so grateful that my wife was fine and wasn't hurt. And, well, as for what happened to my wife after that, even though it was an emergency situation and she had no choice, she was really upset that a man that wasn't her husband saw her fully naked body. On the day of the incident, given the circumstances surrounding the incident, a female police officer was placed in charge of my wife and dealt with the situation kindly. And during the questioning, my wife was focused on telling the story. But after that, she said that she couldn't stand the thought that an unknown man had seen her naked body, and it took her a while to recover. She said that in the moment she knew that she needed to do something or else she would get taken advantage of, and that her instincts moved. And so, the moment that the situation was cleared and she came back to face the reality of the situation, the police officer said she was so upset that she broke down in tears. When I heard that, I have to admit that I felt pretty guilty. Because I heard the screaming voice coming from inside the apartment, I knew that my wife must have been truly terrified. Even if she had done martial arts, even if she studied professional wrestling, my wife was still a woman. And I realized that no matter how strong she might be, there's no way that she wouldn't have been scared of an adult man trying to assault her with his full strength as well. After all of that, and knowing how scared my wife must have been, and to celebrate the fact that the criminal was arrested and in place behind bars, we went on our honeymoon and I made sure to treat my wife as well as I could. In the beginning, my wife had said that because it was our honeymoon, she wanted to take more time and spend more days in Hawaii. But I didn't think that I would be able to take so much time off of work, so our plan was to only go for 3 days and 2 nights. But after everything that happened, I went to beg my boss, and I also spoke to my colleagues and explained the situation to them to try to ask for an extension of the holiday. But then my boss said, "You idiot! If you try to cut this short, then you're going to regret it later. This is your honeymoon, for goodness sake. You should take all the time that you want. You have plenty of days of leave left anyway." And he was quick to agree. Even my colleague said, "That's right, this is your honeymoon. You should go and enjoy it to the max. And I can only imagine how scared your wife must have been, so you should go and make sure that her mind is only filled with fun times. Oh, but you better not forget some souvenirs for us." Just like that, I was able to succeed in getting a full week of vacation from work. And after that, I called the hotel and not only changed our reservation, but also upgraded our room. Because we extended our trip to 1 week, we packed a few more clothes into our suitcases, and we headed off towards our vacation in the best mood. Thanks to being able to get a full week off of work, and because I also upgraded the hotel room as a surprise for my wife, she was thrilled, and she spent the entire honeymoon smiling from start to finish. Even though our apartment was broken into by a thief, in the end, my wife said that it resulted in the best honeymoon ever and that she was fully satisfied, and I was relieved to hear that. After that incident, and seeing my wife catch the criminal with those moves to make sure that he was arrested on the spot, I actually developed a little interest in professional wrestling. When we got back home, my wife and I went to go see a match together, and it was actually pretty fun. These days, the two of us go fully prepared with our wrestling goods and regularly go to cheer on our favorite wrestlers.
My name is Helen Smith. I live together with my husband, David Smith, and our beautiful son, Richard. We're a happy family of 3, and I'm a full-time housewife. Ever since I was younger, I had a pretty straightforward personality that most people said was more masculine. When it came to cooking, I thought the flavors were all that mattered, so I was the type of person that didn't care too much about the way that it looked. I also didn't pay much attention to the colorfulness or the presentation of the food. But I thoroughly thought about the nutrition of every meal, and I cooked for my family every single day. However, my mother-in-law was the complete opposite type as me. Every day, she would make meals that were beautifully plated, full of colors that were all thought out, and her cooking was the best in both presentation and flavors. My husband's family house was pretty close to our house, so my mother-in-law often came over to our place and delivered her home-cooked meals to us. That made me really happy, and I was also looking forward to her meals. Unfortunately, it wasn't only happy, though. Whenever my mother-in-law would deliver her meals to our house, every single time we'd be eating it, my husband would start complaining about my cooking.
Yeah, as usual, my mom's cooking is always the best. Unlike yours, Helen. You should learn a thing or two from her.
I would get irritated with my husband, who would say things like this, but the reality was that it was the truth, so I wasn't able to say anything back to him. Then one day, we were going to gather at David's family house. It was his father's 60th birthday celebration, and they were going to have a gathering with all of the relatives at their house. I knew it would be difficult for my mother-in-law to prepare all of the cooking for the entire party by herself, so I decided to make my specially fried chicken at home and bring it over to their house. When we arrived at my in-laws' house, there was already a beautiful feast laid out on the dining room table. All of the relatives had gathered and were also admiring the table, with many of them complimenting my mother-in-law and her cooking, which they all knew was amazing. I then took out the fried chicken that I had made at home, and when I brought it over to the table, my mother-in-law said,
"Oh my goodness! Oh, this looks delicious, Helen! Thank you so much!"
And she seemed genuinely happy. However, my husband then came over and whispered into my ear,
Hey! Why would you put out food like this that looks so bad? What an embarrassment! Put it away!
He said. It was true that I had burnt a few places here and there on the fried chicken, but I tried some at home and I had also gotten my son's approval. So I said to my husband, "Are you trying to tell me to throw it away after I already made this much?"
I don't care what you do with it, just hurry up and get rid of it now!
And he coldly snapped at me. So I started putting the fried chicken back into the cooler pack that I had brought with me, and that was when my father-in-law showed up.
Let's hurry and heat up the fried chicken and put it out on the table. Fried chicken is my favorite food, and yours is the best, Helen.
I proceeded to heat up the fried chicken in the microwave and put it out on the table. My husband watched me the entire time with a sour look on his face, glaring at me. When everybody started digging in, everyone was focused on my mother-in-law's cooking. However, both of my in-laws went straight for my fried chicken first, and when they ate it, they said,
"This is delicious! Helen made all of this fried chicken for us! It's great!"
And she'd recommend that everybody else try some too. When the other relatives took a bite of the fried chicken, they all complimented it, saying, "This fried chicken is great!" But when my husband heard that, he said out loud to everyone,
You don't need to force yourselves to eat such unsightly food when it looks this disgusting.
At that moment, everyone went quiet and looked at my husband with an awkward look on their faces. But this was my father-in-law's 60th birthday party, and I didn't want to ruin it, so I desperately tried to fix the situation.
"I'm so sorry. The cooking I make is never the most presentable. Definitely not for the gram."
And I tried to laugh it off. Because of my husband, the party had frozen in that moment. But for the rest of the day, nothing bad happened after that, and the curtains closed on the birthday party with everyone having a great time. However, after that day, my husband's harassment and complaints only became worse and worse.
What the hell were you thinking? How dare you embarrass me in front of my relatives like that?
And from that day forward, he seemed to be holding the unsightly fried chicken against me forever. And then the week after that, my husband said to me,
You need to learn how to cook from my mom.
And he dragged the whole family to his parents' house. And as soon as we arrived, he stormed over to his mom and said,
Hey, Mom, teach this woman how to cook. Everything that she makes is always brown and ugly, so I never have an appetite and don't want to eat it.
But my mother-in-law responded to him,
"What's so wrong with cooking that's brown? You should not be complaining about food that someone has worked hard to make for you,"
and snapped at him. But it was clear that those words meant nothing to my husband, and his only response was,
You don't need to push it and try to defend Helen.
So I said, I look forward to learning how to cook from you, Mrs. Smith. To my mother-in-law, I smiled, and that must have changed her mood because she took me to the kitchen and kindly started teaching me one of her dishes. We made a paella together for lunch, and when we got it out on the table, my husband was overjoyed.
This is it. Yup, that's it. So did you learn how to make it? Are you gonna remember it?
Yeah, I took notes, so don't worry.
But I bet even when you make it at home, it's not gonna look this beautiful anyway. Hey, Mom, can you just move in with us, please?
But when my husband said that out of nowhere, I was shocked and couldn't help but say, What? He had never once spoken to me about living with his parents, and I could barely believe my ears. Normally, before asking his mother about such an important topic, he should have spoken to me, his wife, about it first. I loved my in-laws and we got along well, but I never thought about wanting to live with them. And judging by my mother-in-law's reaction, I think they felt the same way. In response to my husband's sudden suggestion, my mother-in-law said,
"Move in with you? But why would I do that?"
My husband said,
I want to eat your cooking every day, Mom. It's the best! And I'm sure it's hard for you to do all of the chores around the house all the time, right? So we can live together and you can just make Helen do it all for you.
When David said that, my father-in-law, who had been quiet the whole time, suddenly chimed in and said,
David, you and your family are going to be staying here tonight with us.
Because we lived so close to their house, we never stayed over at David's parents' house, and this would be the first time. That's why it was such a mystery to me that my father-in-law suggested this. However, after spending the day with them, I was going to find out that reason behind that little by little. When it became the afternoon, my mother-in-law went out to do the groceries and start preparing for dinner. And then she started cleaning the bath and toilet as well as wiping down the whole house. Then she came over to me and said,
Helen, please relax and make yourself comfortable. David, you need to come and help me.
And then she started using my husband left and right. When it became the evening, she made him go get the laundry that was drying outside and fold it, and then start helping prepare dinner. Even though I tried to say I would help many times, my mother-in-law would simply say,
Don't worry, Helen, I'm having David help me, so it's fine.
But my husband looked exhausted from helping his mother the whole day, and by the time the night came around, he practically collapsed into the bed. But the next morning, when it became 4 o'clock in the morning, my mother-in-law went into the bedroom and hit David until he woke up.
Get up, David, we're going to start preparing breakfast. Of course, David wasn't happy about it and said,
Hey, Mom, it's only 4 a.m. though. Let me sleep some more.
But my mother-in-law was having none of it.
Shut up! You need to wake up and help me now!
And she forced him out of bed and into the kitchen. When Richard and my father-in-law and I woke up around 6 a.m. and went down into the dining room, there was a beautiful breakfast laid out across the table. David said,
I can't believe you're making me make broth and stew first thing in the morning like this. It's way too much.
When we were all finished eating breakfast, he didn't even have time to take a break because my mother-in-law instructed David to water the front and back lawn and to clean the windows. When he was finished with that, next she said that they were going to start baking bread for a snack. At this point, my husband had reached his limit and he cried.
I can't do this anymore. I want to go home.
And he had given up. David started getting ready to go home, but then my father-in-law opened his mouth and delivered the final blow.
Now do you understand how difficult it is to be a housewife? Do you realize that Helen is doing all of these chores for you every single day, in addition to raising Richard? Plus, your mother is doing the cooking and the chores every day because she enjoys it. She doesn't want any help.
And to continue, my mother-in-law's lecture to David began.
How dare you complain about food that somebody worked hard to make? You are the worst. I am ashamed as your mother. How pathetic. Helen won't be able to become happy if she stays with a man that says things like that. And if you have no intention of changing the way that you think, then you better come back to this house by yourself, and I am going to fix that twisted personality of yours.
But no, why?
Helen, I can only imagine how much you have suffered up until now. I'm so sorry. If David says anything about your cooking ever again, you come and tell us straight away.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Hey, David, you too need to apologize to Helen right now.
That was my bad.
That day when we got back home, my husband looked like he felt genuinely guilty and came over to me.
I didn't realize how hard it was to be a full-time housewife. I'm sorry, Helen, for always complaining to you.
He did seem sorry, so I simply said, There's not going to be a next time, all right? And I decided to forgive him, but perhaps my in-laws' punishment towards him worked because David never once complained about my cooking ever again. And then on top of that, he also started becoming more proactive about helping with the chores than ever before, and the stress that I had been feeling miraculously dissolved. After spending one night at his parents' place, it seems that he truly felt how difficult it is to do the daily chores. As for me, ever since the day I stayed over at my in-laws' place, I started doing the cleaning in my house even more carefully than before. I can't do everything as perfectly as my mother-in-law, but I was putting in more effort into my cooking and the chores. My in-laws said to me,
If my son starts getting carried away again, we'll make him do more training at our house. So please tell us any time. You can always count on us.
And they are being a great support. These days, my husband and my son have been saying that my cooking is the most delicious to them, and now I'm able to be full of confidence as I cook for them every day. As usual, I'm not able to make it as presentable and beautiful as my mother-in-law, but as long as my family is happy and enjoys it, then I think it's fine. If my in-laws hadn't lectured my husband on that day, I think we may have gotten a divorce eventually, and I have nothing but gratitude for my in-laws. Ever since that day, I learned how to cook for my mother-in-law from time to time. I've gotten better at it, and I hope to cook more delicious meals for my family from now on.
I lived with my mom, dad, and big sister. Our relationship as a family was just normal, but I was going through my adolescence, so I wasn't necessarily close with my big sister. And this happened when I was in high school. Back then, I was having my summer break. That year was a very hot one where everyone talked about the extreme hot weather. One day, when I was reading comic books while I ate snacks in my air-conditioned room, my friend Hans called me on the phone. Hans was my friend from school, and he was just an ordinary, nice guy. He also had a big sister that was close to his age, like me, and I think she was 2 years older than him. But he was also going through adolescence, and he said they didn't really talk much. So I answered his call, and I was wondering why he was silent. "Hey Hans, what's up?" I asked him.
It's,
I heard Hans mumble at the other side. I had no idea what was happening to him, so I was lazily eating snacks and asked him again, "Hey, what's wrong? You're the one who called. What are you doing now?"
No, my sister, in her room.
He said something like that. Then I misunderstood that he found his sister doing inappropriate things with a guy. "Ooh, I bet your sister invited her boyfriend over, and you called me because you felt awkward." I was teasing him. He would usually reply saying, "Stupid, it's not like that," but he didn't say anything. So I said, "Hey, what's wrong?" He suddenly said,
My sister is dead in her room.
"Huh? Dead?" I did not expect that answer, and I sat upright feeling like I was forced to come back to my senses and asked him, "Huh? What are you saying?"
No, I think she's dead. She's not breathing and she's not moving.
That's how he replied. When I heard him say that, I couldn't help but yell at him.
Stupid! Why did you call me? You should call the ambulance right away. Hurry up!
Then Hans panicked even more hearing me yell.
Huh? Ambulance? What was the number? 911?
"Yeah, the same as the police, 911.
Oh, okay.
Hans was definitely panicking, and I wasn't sure if he could correctly describe his situation. But it would be too late if I'm the one who explains. There was only one option. Use your landline phone. You can keep calling me and call 911 using your landline phone. Tell them how your sister is and your home address." I was literally telling him what to do. Hans seemed to calm down, knowing I'd stay on the call with him, and said, "Okay," and followed my orders as he called for help. While waiting for the ambulance, he kept on saying on the other side of the phone,
What should I do? My sister! What am I supposed to do?
So I grabbed the keys for my bike and ran out of my room. "It's gonna be fine. The ambulance is coming. I'll also be on my way." Like that, I pedaled my bike hard and headed to his house. On my way to his house, I soon heard the siren of the ambulance on the other side of the phone, and then I think I heard the doorbell ring at his house. Considering where he lived, I can only think of the general hospital nearby, so I said on the phone, "I'll head to the hospital too, so you accompany her on the ambulance." Then I hung up. It was a summer day, and I was putting my all into pedaling the bike, so by the time I arrived at the hospital, I was covered in sweat. It made me wonder, as a high schooler, when was the last time I used all my energy to the fullest like this? And I really put all my effort into pedaling the bike, so it's no surprise. When I entered the hospital, I quickly found Hans sitting on the bench. "Hans, are you okay?" I said to him, but his face was very pale. After his sister was carried out of the ambulance, it seemed like she was taken to the emergency room. Hans was unable to move, but the nurse asked him for his parents' contacts, so I told him everything on his behalf. By the time his parents arrived after getting a call, they were done treating his sister. To sum it up, his sister barely made it through. When she was taking a nap in an air-conditioned room, she had put on the timer settings without realizing, and it turned off after an hour, and she kept on sleeping in the hot room, so she got heat stroke. Hans said that his sister usually made a lot of noise in her room, but she suddenly went silent, so he thought she went outside and checked her room to make sure. But once he opened her room, hot air puffed out, and in her sauna-like room, his sister was sleeping on the bed face down. And she didn't wake up even when he shook her shoulders, so he decided to call me. Hans' father said to me,
Thank you for your help. If you didn't make the right decisions, our daughter might have been in big danger right now.
His mother was in tears.
Thank you very much.
She thanked me. His sister had to be hospitalized for a day to monitor her recovery, so I went home. By the way, my dad happened to leave work early and picked me up with his truck on my way home, so I got him to drive me and my bicycle home. A week later, Hans' sister recovered completely, and when I went to hang out at his house, I asked him why he decided to call me that day. But he said that he didn't remember anything from that day. Apparently, he remembered nothing after he found his sister in her room. He said that his head probably went crazy because he panicked so much back then. I've heard Hans complain about his sister, like how all siblings do, but I bet he was worried sick because she was his family. If my family member was also on the verge of dying, I'm not sure I could stay calm and sane, actually. I might panic even more than Hans, and I might not be able to do anything. It happened accidentally, but still, Hans had a really hard time. If Hans had no interest in his sister and didn't even bother to check on her, she wouldn't have been alive today. The doctor also said that she was lucky. He's always fighting with his sister, calling each other stupid and stuff, but I'm glad they had a nice relationship. Nothing is scarier than having no interest in each other. It seemed like the incident became a trauma for Hans, and he would sometimes wake up surprised, dreaming about his sister's death. And he developed a habit of checking on his sister to make sure she was alive. It's no surprise thought. His parents were just the same, and they did the same. Hans said, My sister's usually really loud, and I rarely talk to her, so I always thought she was annoying, but when I faced the possibility of her death, it was really scary. I also have a big sister, but I learned that our family would always have a special spot in our hearts. To be honest, I was really scared too. I regularly visit their house, and I often ran into his sister inside his house. Sometimes I would even join them for dinner, so my mind went blank for a moment when he told me that she wasn't breathing. But if I also started panicking with Hans, who was already in panic, it would be a huge problem. I ended up yelling at Hans back then, but I think I was trying to tell myself to get myself together as well. By the way, his sister regretted what she did and apologized to her family, saying that she learned her lesson. And she said to me,
Thank you so much for helping me. I'm alive today because you were there for us, Richard.
She gave me a cookie. His parents even visited my parents to say thank you. They brought some desserts to thank us, saying that their daughter was safe thanks to me. It was such a surprising incident that happened during my summer break, but I'm really glad my friend's sister made it through.
Before I met my current husband, I divorced my ex-husband who had an affair. When my mother and sister found that out, You simply weren't attractive enough. You can't blame him.
Your sister is right. That would never happen to her.
They laughed at me. My sister has been married to a man who has had a regular job for many years. My mother was always on my sister's side because she's been my mother's favorite. Everything was my fault to them. Trying to have some distance from them, I moved into a smaller apartment the next town with my child and worked and raised her as a single mother. I received some child support, which needed to be more. Then it stopped coming in later, and there was no way to find out what had happened to it. It was tight, but I kept going for my little daughter. Then one day, I met my current husband. I couldn't have a full-time job while raising my child, so I chose a part-time job at a store where I could decide my hours, and at a local restaurant. My husband was a regular customer at the store, and we started to say hi, and eventually he asked me out. I still hadn't recovered from my divorce yet, and for the sake of my child, I couldn't make myself move forward with him. But he said he would never be unfaithful, and he would raise my daughter as his own. He even said that he didn't mind raising my daughter as his only child, and he didn't mind not having his biological daughter if that would make me feel better. I was moved by his words and said yes to his proposal. He was a truly nice person who my first-grade daughter adores. It didn't take long to get us to the wedding bell. Then he told me for the first time that he was the son of a company president and he was promised to take over the position one day. When we went to meet his parents at their estate, they were surprisingly nice people who had a nice life. They let us stay in one of the apartments they owned, and from then on, my life as a single mother changed dramatically. But my husband was down to earth. There was nothing for me to worry about. I don't know how they found out about my remarrying, but my mother and sister, who offered no help when I was a struggling single mother, came back into my life. They would show up when my husband was at work, insisting on visiting.
How come you never told us about your remarrying? It's unthinkable. We are your family.
They started showing up regularly for no good reason. They would hang out in our large living room, and when they left, there were always some large bags in their hands.
Oh, I forgot to buy some rice and meat. Look at this purse. Oh, it's so pretty. It'll look better on me. It suits me.
They did whatever they felt like. I could call the police, but I didn't want to make a scene and bother my husband. I didn't want him to know that I had such shameful people in my family. Besides, I was afraid of how he would react to it. He's such a kind and generous person. He may well accept them as his family, no matter how shameful their behaviors were. I knew they would try to push the limit and escalate. Another thing I couldn't stand was that they totally ignored my daughter. They came to steal stuff, and that was all there was. My daughter is their family, but she was regarded like nobody. They were showing up almost daily, but that stopped suddenly. I felt relieved, but at the same time, I had an eerie feeling. As if it was confirmed, my phone rang. It was my sister.
Hey, guess where we are now? In Hawaii!
She said that she was on vacation in Hawaii along with her husband and our mother. I doubted her husband could afford a trip to Hawaii for 3 adults. As if she heard me, my sister said,
I know you're wondering how we could afford this. I borrowed your credit card the other day. What? Did you take my credit card? I can't believe it. Why not? You hit a jackpot. We are entitled to a little bit of what you got. We know you were hiding it. Don't be so cheap.
When we got married, my husband handed me a credit card with a large amount of credit line. I got scared and reached for my wallet. But my card is here.
Huh?
It's here with me, in my purse. Did you check the name on it? What? You've got to be kidding me. I'm sure I took your card out of your wallet and put mine back. Then a minute later, what happened? Why is my card in here? They were screaming on the other side of the phone. I had no clue what was going on. Listening to my conversation, my daughter came up to me and solved the mystery. I told my sister what happened, who was still panicking. Looks like my daughter fixed things. What are you saying? So I explained to her clearly. When they visited us last time, my daughter found my sister's purse and belongings lying on the floor. Being clumsy, my sister would just push the cards and receipts together in and outside the wallet. Being organized, my daughter put them back one by one in the wallet. She found my credit card among them. I always use my card for daily use, and my daughter could recognize the name on it. She rightfully put my card back in my wallet when she found my sister's card. My daughter put it back in my sister's wallet. Finally realizing what happened, my sister yelled at me.
You must be joking. Was I using my card all this time? Do you have any idea how much we spent on it?
That's not my concern. You spent your money on your credit card, which is nothing strange. I'm going to praise my daughter.
I can't believe it. We bought so many things and stayed in a suite. This is your fault. You'll pay for this.
Like I said, you used your money on your credit card. No one would see it as strange, and certainly it won't be my responsibility to pay for it, no matter who you talk to. I heard my mother screaming and my sister and her husband yelling at each other. I didn't need this mess, so I hung up the phone. Later on, I decided to confess the whole thing to my husband. I told him that I wanted to live somewhere they wouldn't find us. He told his parents about it, and they came up with an idea. My family returned from vacation and didn't waste a minute until they rushed over to our place, where a stranger answered the door. The new tenant called and reported to the police that strangers were screaming at the door. So I explained to them that we moved in with our in-laws. Not surprisingly, they were furious. This will stop their past behaviors for good. My sister spent above the credit limit of $10,000 for the vacation, and her husband divorced her for it. She ridiculed me for getting divorced, but now she's in my shoes. Too bad. She has a long way to go before she pays off all her debt, which I think is just right for them.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.